The air in my own bedroom felt thin. My son, Marcus, stood where his father, David, used to stand, right by the window. His voice was sharp, a weapon I did not recognize. "Mother, Tiffany needs the space." I looked past him to the doorway. Tiffany, his wife of 6 months, was leaning against the doorframe, her arms crossed. A small, satisfied smile played on her lips as she inspected my furniture. I turned back to Marcus, the boy I had raised in this very house. This is my room, Marcus. This has been my room for 35 years. And we need it, he said, not unkindly, but with a finality that scared me. Tiffany needs the master bedroom. It is only right. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Tiffany pushed off the doorframe, walking past me to touch the heavy oak dresser David and I had bought on our honeymoon. "This old thing will have to go," she murmured, mostly to herself. "Marcus, please," I started, my voice lower than I intended. "Your father built this room for us." He cut me off. He pointed a finger, not at me, but towards the hallway, towards the front door. "Give my wife your room, or get out of here right now." The shock was a physical blow. It punched the air from my lungs. "Get out," he had said. "Get out." From my own home. Tiffany's smile widened. She ran a hand along the wall, her eyes scanning my space. My space. Like she was already measuring for new curtains. "Hello, everyone. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from. It keeps our stories alive." I looked at the wedding photograph on my nightstand. David and me. 1978. His arm was around my waist, and we were standing on this very patch of land. Back then, it was just red Georgia clay and a forest of pines. There was no house. I remembered the sweat on his brow as he hammered the first frame, the calluses on his hands. "This is our legacy, Martha," he'd said, his voice full of a pride that filled my whole heart. "A foundation, something for our children." He laid every brick of that fireplace with his own hands. I planted the oak tree out front that now towered over the roof, its leaves turning a brilliant autumn orange. David was gone. God had called him home 6 years ago, but the house remained. This house was him. It was us. And now, the child that house was built for was casting me out. My hands started to shake. I clenched them into fists at my sides, digging my nails into my palms. I would not cry. I would not give Tiffany the satisfaction of seeing me break. I walked to the closet, the one David had built dividers in just for my shoes, and pulled out a small overnight bag. It was the one I used for church retreats. "Mother, do not be dramatic," Marcus said. His voice wavered for just a second. He did not expect me to actually do it. I zipped the bag. I packed my Bible, my medication, and 2 changes of clothes. I did not take any of the jewelry David had given me. I left it in the top drawer. I walked towards the door. Tiffany stood in the way, that smirk still on her face. I looked her dead in the eye. I did not say a word. I just looked at her until the smirk faltered and she was forced to step aside. I paused at the threshold and looked back at Marcus. The anger, the betrayal, the deepest hurt I had ever known. It formed a cold, hard stone in my chest. My voice came out, rasping but clear. "You will regret this, Marcus." I turned and left the wedding photograph on the nightstand. I left it there on purpose, where they would have to see it. I walked out of my room, down the hall David and I had designed, and out the front door he had hung. The autumn air in Atlanta hit my face. It felt like a slap. I did not know where I was going. The streetlights flickered on, casting long, lonely shadows on the pavement. I sat on the hard plastic bench of the bus stop, the evening chill seeping through my thin coat. A gust of wind blew a handful of dead leaves around my feet. I pulled my purse tighter to my chest. I had $24 and some change in my wallet. I was 68 years old, homeless in Atlanta. Where did I go wrong? I searched my memory, the scenes flickering past my eyes like a broken movie. David's funeral, the suffocating smell of lilies. Marcus, my son, holding my hand, his own eyes red with tears. I will take care of everything, Mama. He had promised me, his voice thick. You do not worry about a thing. I will handle the bills, the house, everything. I believed him. Lord, how I believed him. I remembered the day at the bank, just a week later. The nice young man in the suit who kept calling me Mistress Evans. Marcus had all the papers ready, stacked neatly. It is just easier this way, Mama, he explained gently, so I can pay the bills for you without you having to come down here. Joint accounts, power of attorney, just paperwork. My hand was still unsteady from the grief. My signature was shaky. I signed where he told me to sign. He was my son, my only child, the one David and I had prayed for 7 years. He will do the right thing, I had told myself over and over. He is David's son. I trusted him with everything. The house David had paid off. The savings David had worked his fingers to the bone for. My pension? Everything. I had made it easy for him. I had handed him the keys to my entire life. The number 16 bus hissed to a stop in front of me, its lights cutting through the dusk. I almost let it pass. Where was there to go? Then a name came to me like a lifeline. Eleanor, my best friend, my sister in Christ for 40 years. I fumbled for the bus fare, my cold fingers struggling with the coins. I boarded and sat in the very back, avoiding the eyes of the other passengers. I felt like a vagrant. The bus moved through the Atlanta streets I knew so well, but tonight they looked foreign, hostile. Every familiar landmark felt like an accusation. Half an hour later, I was standing on Eleanor's porch. Her windows glowed with warmth. It felt so shameful, arriving like this, a beggar at her door. I finally raised a trembling hand and knocked. The door swung open almost immediately. Eleanor stood there in her housecoat, her face warm with surprise. That warmth quickly turned to alarm. Martha, Lord have mercy, child. What are you doing out here? She exclaimed, her voice booming. You look like you have seen a ghost. Get in here. She pulled me inside into the safety of her kitchen. The smell of coffee and cinnamon enveloped me. It was the smell of sanity, of comfort. Eleanor, I started to say, and then the dam broke. The tears I refused to shed in front of Tiffany, the ones I held back in my own home, came in a hot, painful, humiliating rush. She did not say a word. She just sat me down at her table and wrapped a strong arm around my shoulders, her hand rubbing my back. She let me cry until the sobs quieted into ragged, empty breaths. She pushed a steaming mug of coffee into my hands. Now, she said, her voice firm but kind. You tell me everything, from the beginning. So I told her. The words tumbled out. Tiffany's sneers about my furniture, the way she'd reorganized my kitchen, leaving me unable to find anything, the whispers to Marcus when they thought I was not listening. And then, the final words. Get out of here right now. Eleanor's warm expression faded. Her face, usually so full of light from the Sunday choir, grew still and hard. He said that, she stated. It was not a question. I nodded, sipping the hot coffee. It burned my throat. He has changed, Elle, since he married that girl. That girl is poison, Eleanor said, her voice flat. But poison only works if the door's open, Martha. She looked at me, her eyes sharp, cutting through my fog of grief. What exactly did you sign after David passed? I do not rightly know, I admitted, the shame returning hot and acidic. Everything, I suppose. Marcus said it was just to manage things. Pay the light bill, the property taxes. Did you give him power of attorney? She pressed. Did you put his name on the deed to the house? On the accounts? Yes, I whispered. All of it. He said it was just in case of emergency. Eleanor stood up from the table and walked to her window, looking out into the dark. Her back was rigid. Oh, Martha, she said, her voice heavy with a terrible knowledge. My dear, dear friend. She turned back to me, her face etched with a grim, new understanding. You did not just give him management. You gave him a weapon. A weapon? Eleanor's words hung in the warm kitchen, chilling me to the bone. My coffee cup sat untouched on the table, its contents gone cold. She would not, I stammered, but the words sounded hollow even to my own ears. Marcus is a good boy. He loves me. He was a good boy, Eleanor said, her voice sharp as glass. She sat back down, her gaze unflinching. But Tiffany does not. And that is who is driving this car, Martha. You need to accept that. My mind flew back 6 months to the first time Marcus brought Tiffany over for Sunday dinner. I remember being so nervous, so excited. I'd spent all day making David's favorite pot roast. The good silver, the lace tablecloth. I wanted her to feel welcomed. She walked into my home. She did not look at me. She looked up at the ceiling. Interesting, she'd said, her eyes landing on the chandelier David's mother had left us. Very vintage. She barely touched the food. I watched her push the collard greens around on her plate with her fork, a tiny, pinched look on her face. Marcus always said you were a traditional cook, she'd said, smiling at him. Not at me. It did not feel like a compliment. I saw the way she looked at my things that day. It was not with interest. It was with calculation. Her eyes scanned the living room, pausing on the mahogany sideboard, the grandfather clock in the hall, the oil painting of the coast David had bought me. It was the look of an appraiser, pricing my life. After that dinner, the phone calls from Marcus became less frequent. It used to be every day, just a quick, "Hi, Mama, love you." Then it became twice a week. After they married, I was lucky to get a call on Sundays. Tiffany says we need to be building our own future, Mama, he'd said one night, his voice defensive when I asked why I had not heard from him. She says we cannot be tied down to old habits. Old habits. Like family dinner. Like calling his mother. I saw her work. She was a master, chipping away at his loyalty piece by piece. She painted my love as control. She painted my home, his childhood home, as a cage. She convinced him my wisdom was criticism and that my presence was a burden. And Marcus, so blinded by her youth, so desperate to prove he was his own man, he let her. He let her sever the roots his father and I had spent a lifetime planting deep into that red Georgia clay. I remembered the week after their wedding. They were over, and I was in the kitchen making lemonade. I heard them in David's study, the room I kept just as he'd left it. I walked in. Tiffany was running her long, painted fingernails over the brass lock of David's old filing cabinet, the one where he kept all his important papers. "What is in here, Martha?" she'd asked, her voice casual. Too casual. "Just David's old papers," I'd said, feeling a sudden, strange need to protect it. "Memories. Old business things." "You should really clear all this old stuff out," she'd suggested, tapping the metal lock with her nail. "It just takes up space. We could make this a nursery one day." Sitting there in Eleanor's kitchen, that memory hit me like a physical blow. My hands flew to my mouth, stifling a gasp. "Oh, my Lord." Eleanor looked at me, alarmed. "What is it, Martha? What did you remember?" "The cabinet," I whispered, my eyes wide with a new dawning horror. She asked about David's locked filing cabinet. She wanted to know what was in it. I looked at Eleanor, the terror rising in my throat. She is in my house right now. She is in my room. I gripped Eleanor's hand. Eleanor, they are going through my things. They are going to try and open that cabinet. I have to go back, I said, jumping up from Eleanor's table. The panic was a living thing, clawing its way up my throat. My mind was fixed on that locked cabinet. Eleanor, David's medals, I said, my voice frantic. His honorable discharge papers, his father's Bible, it is all in that cabinet. Eleanor did not argue. She grabbed her keys from the hook by the door. I'm driving you. The drive back to the house was the longest 15 minutes of my life. The streets of Atlanta blurred past the window. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought it might break through. Eleanor parked across the street, under the shadow of the old oak tree I'd planted. You want me to come in with you, Martha? No, I said, my voice surprisingly firm. My hand was on the door handle. This is my son, my house. I will face them. I walked up the pathway David and I had laid, stone by stone. I still had my key. I slid it into the lock, my hands shaking so much it took 2 tries. It turned. They had not changed the locks. Not yet. I pushed the door open. The smell hit me first. Stale cigarette smoke. Tiffany smoked, though she promised Marcus she'd quit, and something else. Dust. The hallway was dark, but my path was blocked. 3 large black plastic trash bags, tied shut, sat by the front door like grotesque statues. Marcus, I called out. My voice echoed in the foyer, sounding thin and strange. A light flicked on at the top of the stairs. It was Tiffany. She was wearing one of my good silk bathrobes, the one David had bought me in Paris. What on earth are you doing here? She snapped, her voice thick with sleep and annoyance. I thought Marcus told you to leave. This is my house, I said, my eyes adjusting to the light. I saw the door to David's study was wide open. I walked past her, ignoring the robe, ignoring her. I went straight to the study. It was worse than I could have imagined. The room had been ransacked. The filing cabinet lock was broken, hanging uselessly from a single screw. Drawers were pulled open, papers scattered across the floor. What did you do? I whispered, the words catching in my throat. I looked back at the trash bags in the hall. My blood ran cold. I ran to the nearest bag and tore it open with my bare hands. It was full of my life. Old photo albums, the corners cracked. Letters David had sent me from basic training, tied in a blue ribbon. And there, glinting under the hallway light, was his purple heart. It was sitting on top of a pile of rotting coffee grounds. I plunged my hands into the filth, pulling it out, wiping the grime off on my coat. I did not care. My God, I choked out, sinking to my knees. My God, my God. I was just cleaning up, Tiffany said from the stairs, that same bored, casual voice she'd used to describe my chandelier. It is just junk, Martha. Clutter. This is my husband's medal, I screamed, holding it up. The sound was ragged, torn from my very soul. This is not junk. Marcus appeared behind her, shirtless, his eyes clouded with sleep. Mama, what is going on? Why are you yelling? Look, I cried, pointing at the bag, at the medal in my hand. Look at what she has done. She threw this away. She threw your father away. Marcus took a step down, his face pale. He saw the medal. He saw the trash bags. For 1 second, just 1 second, I saw the boy I had raised. His face crumpled in shame. Tiff. Why, he started. But Tiffany put a hand on his chest, stopping him. Her face hardened. Do not, baby. She's being hysterical. It was an accident. I did not know what it was. An accident? I repeated, my voice shaking with a rage I did not know I possessed. You broke into his cabinet and called it an accident? It is our cabinet now, Tiffany said, her voice turning to steel. Just like this is our house? Now get out. Again. I clutched the metal so hard its pointed edges dug into my palm. I backed away, pulling other things from the bags as I went. Pictures, David's honorable discharge papers, the old Bible. You will not get away with this, I whispered, backing out the front door, dragging the treasures I could save. I stumbled back to Eleanor's car, collapsing into the passenger seat, the trash and memories clutched to my chest. Drive, I just said, the tears finally coming. Please, Elle, just drive. As we pulled away, my phone, buried deep in the bottom of my purse, started to buzz. A persistent, high-pitched ringing. A strange number I did not recognize. I answered it, my voice trembling. Hello? Mistress Martha Evans? A professional, crisp voice asked. This is Robert from First National Bank's fraud department. We're calling to confirm. Ma'am, have you made some significant changes to your accounts this evening? Fraud department? I repeated the words. They sounded foreign, nonsensical. I was sitting in Eleanor's car, parked in her driveway, the dome light casting a sickly yellow glow on the filth in my lap. David's metal was still clenched in my hand, its sharp edges leaving a deep red imprint in my palm. Yes, ma'am, Robert from the bank said. His voice was all business, devoid of any comfort. There was a wire transfer request made online from your account 37 minutes ago for $50,000. I could not breathe. 50,000. We also see several large debit card purchases over the last 48 hours, he continued, reading from his screen. A transaction at Luxury Motors of Atlanta and another at Ultimate Electronics. My breath hitched. The new car. Tiffany must have gotten a new television. Was this authorized by you, Mistress Evans? It was my son, I whispered, the shame burning my throat. My name is on the account, but is he a co-signer, ma'am? The man's voice was instantly colder, the professional concern vanishing. Yes, I said, the word barely audible. I gave him access. I thought he was just paying the light bill. I see. I heard him type something. Then I am afraid this is not a fraud issue, Mistress Evans. It is a civil matter. Since the transfer was initiated by a legal owner of the account, it has been approved. The line clicked. He hung up. Approved. Gone. They're draining it, I said to Eleanor, the phone feeling like a block of ice in my hand. It is gone. $50,000. I showed her the trash in my lap, the metal. And this is what they think of David. This is what they think of us. Eleanor's face, which had been filled with pity, now hardened into a righteous anger I had only seen a few times in the choir loft. She was not my soft church friend anymore. She was a warrior. No, she said, her voice low and dangerous. The devil will not win this. Not today. Not in Atlanta. She got out of the car, pulled me out with her, and marched me back into her house. She sat me at the kitchen table, went to her old-fashioned rotary phone, and dialed a number from memory. Her voice changed, becoming formal and crisp. Benning, it is Eleanor. Eleanor Stokes. She paused, listening, her back ramrod straight. I am fine, Lord bless, but I am sending someone over to you, right now, first thing in the morning. Another pause. Her eyes met mine across the room, and her gaze was a promise. It is Martha Evans, David's widow. She did not need to say anything else. Yes, it is the son. It is bad, real bad. She hung up the phone. Who is Benning? I asked, my voice small. Benjamin Benning, Eleanor said, taking my dirty coat and hanging it as if it were fine silk. He is not one of those slick lawyers on the billboards. He is our lawyer. He handles the church's estate. He handled my mother's will. He is sharp, Martha, and he does not play. The next morning, Eleanor drove me to his office. It was not a tall glass tower downtown. It was a respected, older brick building near the university with a simple brass plaque that read, Benning and Associates, Estate and Elder Law. The waiting room was quiet, filled with dark wood, the smell of old books and floor wax. It smelled like stability. A moment later, a man came out from a back office. He was not tall, but he had a presence that filled the room. He looked to be in his late 60s, like me, with a full head of silver hair and intelligent, piercing eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a crisp, dark suit and tie. Mistress Evans, he said, his voice deep and steady. He did not smile, but he did not need to. His eyes were kind. I am Benjamin Benning. I was so terribly sorry to hear of David's passing. He was a good man, a pillar of our community. He led me into his office. It was lined, floor to ceiling, with leather-bound books. He gestured for me to sit, and he sat opposite me, behind a large, clean mahogany desk. He did not rush me. He just folded his hands on his desk and waited, his gaze patient. Mr. Benning, I started. The words came flooding out. The scene in the bedroom, the power of attorney. I'd signed in a fog of grief. The joint accounts, the trash bags, the broken lock, the bank's phone call. My voice broke. I reached into my pocket and placed David's purple heart, still flecked with coffee grounds, on his polished desk. He looked at the metal. His expression did not change, but a muscle in his jaw tightened. He did not interrupt me once. When I finished, the silence in the room was heavy. Mr. Benning picked up the purple heart. He ran his thumb over the engraving, his face thoughtful. He looked up, and his eyes locked onto mine. Mistress Evans, he said, his voice quiet but carrying an immense grounding weight. I knew your husband. We served on the church finance committee together for years. He was a meticulous man, a smart man. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes intense. He was a man who protected what was his. He paused, and the question he asked next changed everything. Tell me, Martha, in all your conversations, did David ever mention the word trust? I stared at Mr. Benning. The word trust echoed in my mind, unlocking a memory. It was late, years ago, before David got sick. I'd found him in his study, surrounded by papers, a lamp, casting a golden circle of light on his desk. He looked tired, but satisfied. What are you working on so late, David? I'd asked, bringing him a cup of tea. He tapped a thick stack of papers in a dark blue binder. Just making sure you are taken care of, Martha, no matter what. He looked up at me, his eyes serious. This here, this trust. This makes sure the house is always yours. Nobody can touch it. Not creditors, not, well, it is just safe. This protects you. At the time, it had sounded like complicated legal talk I did not understand. I just kissed his head and told him not to stay up too late. I had forgotten all about it. My head snapped up in Mr. Benning's office. Yes, I said, my voice suddenly stronger. He did. He called it a trust. He said he was making sure I was taken care of, that the house would always be mine. Mr. Benning's entire demeanor changed. The kindness was still in his eyes, but a new sharp energy was there. He sat up straight, all traces of gentle sympathy gone, replaced by the focus of a hawk. Where are the papers, Martha? He asked, his voice crisp. The trust documents. Usually they are in a binder. My heart sank. They must be in the filing cabinet, in the study, the one Tiffany broke into. I thought of the trash bags, the filth, David's medal. She threw so much away, I said, my voice trembling again. She might have, oh Lord, she might have thrown them out with the coffee grounds. Or Mr. Benning said, his voice grim. She found them, recognized what they were, and kept them. She might have them right now. I have to go back, I said, standing up. I have to look. Maybe they missed them. Maybe they are still on the floor. Go, he said, nodding. Do not engage with them. Do not start a fight. Just look for a binder, anything that says trust or estate. If you cannot find it, come right back here. Eleanor was waiting in the car, her hands gripping the steering wheel. I told her what Mr. Benning said. She drove me straight back, her face set in a determined frown. We are getting those papers, Martha. We are not letting that child win. I walked up my own walkway again. It was midday, the sun high and bright, but the house looked dark. The curtains in my bedroom, were drawn shut. I put my key in the lock. It did not turn. I tried again. I jiggled it. Nothing. The key slid in, but it would not catch. My stomach dropped with a sickening lurch. They had changed the locks. In less than 24 hours, they had changed the locks on my home. I was standing there on my own porch, a trespasser, when a car turned onto the street. It was a black, gleaming, obscenely expensive-looking luxury car. It still had the temporary dealer tag in the back window. It pulled right up the driveway, its engine purring, stopping just feet from where I stood. The music was so loud, I could feel the bass vibrating in my chest. The driver's door opened, and Marcus got out. He was wearing new sunglasses. Tiffany got out of the passenger side, carrying a massive shopping bag from a high-end electronics store. She was laughing, her head thrown back until she saw me. The laughter died on her lips. Her face twisted into a mask of pure annoyance. "What are you doing here?" she spat. "Are you deaf? Marcus told you to leave. This is private property." "This is my house," I said, my voice shaking, but I held my ground. "You changed the locks." Marcus finally looked at me, taking off his sunglasses. His eyes were puffy and red. He looked ashamed, but he would not meet my gaze. "We had to, Mama," he mumbled, looking at the pristine pavement of the driveway. "For security." "Security?" I said, my voice rising high and thin. "Security from me? Your mother?" Tiffany stepped forward, past Marcus, jangling a new set of keys in her hand. She stepped up onto the porch so she was eye level with me. "Looks like you lost your key, Martha," she said, a hateful, satisfied smirk spreading across her face. "Guess you will have to find somewhere else to live," she continued, her voice dripping with false pity. "Maybe Eleanor has a spare room in her basement." She unlocked my door with her key, and they walked inside. The door slammed shut in my face. I heard the distinct metallic click of the deadbolt sliding into place. I stood there on the porch for a full minute, the sound of that lock echoing in my ears. The humiliation was a physical sickness, a bitter bile rising in my throat. I turned around, defeated, and walked back to Eleanor's car. She saw my face and did not need to ask. She just started the engine. We drove back to Mr. Benning's office in complete silence. I walked back in, my shoulders slumped. He saw me and knew. "They changed the locks," I said, my voice hollow. I could not get in. I sat back down in the chair I had left only an hour before. "But I am sure now, Mr. Benning. He did mention a trust. I remember it clearly. He said it would protect me." Mr. Benning nodded slowly, his expression calm. "Good. That is very good." "But what good is it?" I asked, the despair creeping back in. "They have the papers. I am locked out. They have all the money. What can we do?" A small, cold smile just barely touched Mr. Benning's lips. "Mistress Evans," he said, leaning back in his chair. "If David filed that trust properly with the county clerk, it does not matter who has the paper copy. It is a public record." "A public record?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I did not dare to hope. "What does that mean?" Mr. Benning steepled his fingers, his gaze intense. It means that when David created the trust, if he did it right, and David did things right, he would have funded it. Funded? The word sounded alien. He would have retitled the house, Mr. Benning explained, his voice patient, like a professor's. The deed would have been legally transferred from David and Martha Evans to the David and Martha Evans Trust. And that new deed, that deed is filed with the Fulton County Superior Court clerk. My head was spinning, but I held on to the important part. So, we can find it, even if I am locked out. Martha, he said, a note of grim determination in his voice. If it is there, my paralegal can pull it in an hour. He buzzed his intercom. Sarah, I need you to run a full title search on Mistress Evans' property. I also need you to check the county clerk's office for any registered trust pertaining to David or Martha Evans. Expedite it. He turned back to me, his expression hardening. Now, the bank accounts. The power of attorney you signed is a problem, but the trust is the fortress. If the house is in the trust, he cannot sell it. He cannot borrow against it, not without committing a felony. A felony? My son. The word hit me like a stone. The weight was agonizing. I sat in that quiet, wood-paneled office. Eleanor sat beside me, her knitting needles clicking a steady, comforting rhythm, but I could not rest. Mr. Benning was on the phone with my bank's legal department. His voice was low, firm, and full of words I did not understand. Breach of fiduciary duty, immediate freeze, elder financial abuse, contested asset. He finally hung up, his face grim. They have put a temporary hold on the checking account, pending our investigation. And the savings? I whispered. The $50,000? He met my eyes. The wire transfer is gone, Martha. We can try to get it back, but it is a fight. Just as that new wave of sickness washed over me, my phone buzzed in my lap. Another text message alert from the bank. I fumbled to open it, my hands shaking. It was not about a withdrawal. It was a credit inquiry. A new credit inquiry? I read it aloud, confused. From Atlanta Mutual Mortgage. What does that mean? Mr. Benning's head snapped up. His eyes turned to ice. A mortgage, he said, his voice flat. They are borrowing against the house, I whispered, the full venomous weight of their plan hitting me. The new car, they did not pay cash. They are using my house, David's house, as a credit card. They were not just taking my money. They were putting the legacy David and I had built, the one he'd paid off 20 years ago, into debt. They thought the power of attorney gave them the right. They thought, because Marcus's name was on the accounts, that he owned the property. The intercom buzzed again, making me jump. Mr. Benning, it is Sarah. I am back from the clerk's office. The paralegal, a sharp-looking young woman, came in. She was holding a single thin sheet of paper. My heart sank. The trust binder in David's study had been thick. I checked the title records, sir, Sarah said, her voice professional. The most recent deed on file for that address is the original one, from 1978, in the names of David Evans and Martha Evans, as joint tenants. She looked at me with a flicker of pity. There is no deed transferring the property into a trust. I searched under both their names. If a trust exists, it does not seem to have been funded with the real estate. The air left my lungs. The hope that had just flickered to life died. Mr. Benning was wrong. David had not protected me. It meant Marcus and I were co-owners. It meant he could borrow against it. It meant he could force a sale. I truly had nothing. Mr. Benning was staring at the paper, his brow furrowed in disbelief. No, that is not right. David was meticulous. He would not make this mistake. He would not leave his wife exposed. He looked up at Sarah. The mortgage application. When was it filed? This morning, she said. It is already in preliminary underwriting. With the deed on file and his power of attorney, they are likely to approve it, possibly by tomorrow. Mr. Benning stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. He walked to the window, looking out over the city. He would not leave the deed unfunded, he said, to himself more than to me. He turned back, a fire in his eyes I had not seen before. He must have kept the original or filed it somewhere else. Sarah, call Atlanta Mutual right now. Tell them this is a contested asset, that Mistress Evans is the victim of elder financial abuse, and that they will be held liable if they approve that loan. He looked at me, his gaze locking onto mine, and the urgency in his voice terrified me. Martha, they are trying to steal your house right now. We have to find that trust. I sat there, frozen in Mr. Benning's office. The hope that had died just moments before felt impossible to reclaim. So, that is it? I said, my voice hollow. He can just take it? The mortgage will go through? Mr. Benning was pacing, his hands clasped behind his back. He stopped, looking at his wall of law books, but his eyes were a million miles away. No, he said again, his voice sharp and frustrated. It is not possible. David would never leave the trust unfunded. It is the first thing you do. It is. He stopped pacing. His head snapped up. Unless, he said, a strange new energy in his voice. He snapped his fingers, a loud crack in the silent room. He looked at his paralegal. Sarah, what names did you search for? David Evans, Martha Evans, the Evans Trust, Evans Family Trust, she recited. Nothing filed against the property, sir. David was creative, Mr. Benning murmured, more to himself than to us. He was a very spiritual man, and he loved that house. He turned his piercing gaze on me. Martha, did David have a name for the house? A nickname? Something private? I thought back to the years of saving, the years of work, back to the heartache we'd endured before we built it. He always said it was our rebirth, I said, the memory surfacing clear as glass. After we lost the first baby, he called the house our revival, our new beginning. Mr. Benning's eyes lit up. It was a terrifying, brilliant light. He strode past Sarah to her computer and pushed her gently aside. I and Eleanor followed, crowding the doorway. Pull up the county clerk's main registry, he commanded, not the property database, the corporate and trust filings. His fingers flew over the keyboard, faster than I'd have thought possible. Search, he muttered. Search. The David and Martha Revival Trust. He hit the enter key. We waited. The screen flickered, and then a single line of text appeared. The David and Martha Revival Trust. Filed October 14th, 2011. Status: active, irrevocable. Lord have mercy. Eleanor whispered, clutching my arm so hard it hurt. I did not care. He filed it. Mr. Benning breathed, a slow smile of pure intellectual admiration spreading across his face. He did not file a new deed. He was smarter than that. He clicked the link. A scanned document appeared, page after page of dense legal text. He scrolled, his eyes scanning until he stopped. Appendix A, Assets of the Trust, he read aloud. He pointed to the screen. There it was, in David's neat, precise handwriting, attached as a schedule. The real property located at 1245 Peachtree Lane, Atlanta, Georgia, and all original titles and deeds attached here too. He made the original deed part of the trust declaration itself, Benning said, his voice full of wonder. It is unconventional, but it is ironclad. It is perfectly, beautifully legal. He hit the print button, and the printer in the corner whirred to life. He gathered the pages as they came out, a thick stack of nearly 50 pages. He brought them back to his desk and began to read, his finger tracing the lines. I just stood there, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear. "Here it is," he said, his voice quiet, dangerous. Article 3, Beneficiaries. The primary and sole lifetime beneficiary of this trust is my beloved wife, Martha Evans. During her lifetime, she shall have exclusive rights to inhabit, use, and enjoy all properties within the trust. What does that mean? I asked, my knees weak. It means, Mr. Benning said, looking up at me, that you, and only you, are allowed to live in that house. He read on, his face hardening. Article 4, Trustees. Upon my death, my son Marcus Evans shall be named successor trustee. See? I said, confused. He is the trustee. He is in charge. No, Martha. Listen. Benning's voice was sharp as a razor. A trustee is not an owner. A trustee is a servant. His one and only job is to serve the beneficiary. His job is to protect your interests, according to the rules of this document. And the rules, Mr. Benning said, his voice dropping. Oh my, David was a genius. He turned the page. Section 4B. The successor trustee shall not sell, mortgage, or otherwise encumber the real property during the lifetime of the primary beneficiary without her express written and notarized consent. He looked up from the papers, his eyes finding mine. The kindness was back, but it was mixed with the cold, hard satisfaction of justice. Martha, Marcus does not have the power to take out that mortgage. He does not have the power to change the locks. He does not have the power to throw you out. In fact, Mr. Benning said, tapping the thick document, by doing so, he has violated his fiduciary duty. He has broken the one and only job your husband gave him. He leaned forward. This is not just disrespectful, Martha. This is not just a family spat. This, he said, tapping the paper again, is the weapon. He has committed fraud. He has broken the trust. You do not just deserve the house, Mr. Benning said, his voice ringing with absolute authority. You own everything, and he just gave us the legal right to prove it. The shock was so profound, I had to sit down. My legs gave out, and I sank into the chair. All this time, David had protected me. From beyond the grave, he had reached out and protected me. The tears that came this time were not of grief or fear. They were of a deep, shuddering relief that was almost painful. I looked up at Mr. Benning, the tears streaming down my face, but my hands were steady. The stone of fear in my chest was gone. In its place, something new was forming, something cold and hard and strong, like steel. I wiped my eyes. Mr. Benning, I said, my voice clear and strong, what do we do now? Mr. Benning looked at me, my question. What do we do now? Hanging in the quiet wood-paneled office. He did not smile. He became all business. What we do now, Martha, is we establish our position. He picked up the phone and buzzed his paralegal. Sarah, get on the phone with Atlanta Mutual Mortgage, immediately. He handed her a copy of the freshly printed trust document. Faxed them the declaration page, Article 3, and Section 4B. Inform their legal department that they are officially on notice. If they fund that loan, we will sue them as co-conspirators in a fraudulent conveyance. Sarah's eyes widened. She nodded once, sharp and quick, and hurried out. That, Mr. Benning said, turning back to me, stops the mortgage, permanently. But Mr. Benning, I said, my mind still catching up. He is my son. He is the trustee. Cannot he just say he made a mistake? That he did not understand the paperwork? He could have. Mr. Benning said, his voice hard as granite. If all he did was move in, but he changed the locks on the trust's sole beneficiary. He denied you access to your own home. He destroyed your personal property. I flinched, my hand instinctively going to my pocket where David's medal now lay, clean and safe. And worst of all, Mr. Benning continued, he attempted to encumber the property for his own personal gain. That new car, that $50,000 wire transfer, which is a direct, flagrant violation of the trust document. He did not just bend his duty, Martha. He shattered it. He used his position as trustee to commit fraud against you, and that is a crime. As if summoned by his words, the phone on Mr. Benning's desk rang, loud and jarring in the stillness. He picked it up. Benjamin Benning. He was silent for a long moment, listening. His expression grew darker. Yes, I am. I am looking at the David and Martha Revival Trust right now. I am her legal counsel. Another pause. He scribbled a number on a legal pad. $100,000, he said, the words flat, void of emotion. He looked at me. I see. And you were processing this based on his power of attorney and his status as co-owner? He listened. No, you will not. You will cease all action on that application. The property is a contested asset in an irrevocable trust. A formal cease and desist is on its way from my office. Do you understand? He hung up the phone. That was the bank, he said, though I already knew. Atlanta Mutual. They were calling because my call to your bank's fraud department had triggered an alert. $100,000, he repeated, looking at the note. He was trying to drain every last cent of equity David built. The $50,000 wire transfer was just the start. The confirmation of that number. It was the final straw. The last thread of motherly softness in my heart snapped. He tried to steal it all, I whispered. Yes, Mr. Benning said. He did, which brings us to our options. He folded his hands on his desk. Option 1. We file a petition with the probate court to have him removed as trustee. It is quiet. It is done through paperwork. We present the evidence of his breach. The judge will remove him, and you will be appointed, or the court will appoint a new neutral trustee. It is clean, he said. It avoids a public scene. I was silent, thinking, quiet, clean, like it never happened, as if Tiffany had never worn my robe, as if Marcus had never pointed his finger and told me to get out. And option 2? I asked. Mr. Benning's eyes met mine. He knew what I was going to ask. Option 2, he said, his voice very low, is that we do not just remove him. We file for an emergency ex parte injunction and a writ of possession. We file for an immediate eviction, and we sue him for the $50,000 he stole, for damages to your property, and for the return of your assets. It is not quiet, he warned. It is loud. It is public. It means serving him papers at the house. It means forcing him out with the sheriff's department. I looked down at my hands. I could still feel the sharp edges of David's metal in my palm. I could still smell the stench of coffee grounds and rotten food. I thought of Tiffany, laughing in that new car. I thought of the door slamming in my face, the click of the deadbolt. He called my husband's service medals junk, I said, my voice barely a whisper. He threw them in the trash, Mr. Benning. He did not just lock me out. He tried to erase me. He tried to erase David. I looked up, and Mr. Benning saw the answer in my eyes before I said it. My voice was cold. It did not tremble. I do not want clean. I do not want quiet. I want to make it right, I said. I want my neighbors. I want my church. I want the whole world to see the truth. I want them to feel what it is like to be thrown out. Mr. Benning nodded once, a grim, hard look settling on his face. Very well. Then we begin. He was a man of immediate action. While I was still absorbing the weight of my own decision, he was already dictating a letter to his paralegal, Sarah. Send a cease and desist and a demand for full accounting via certified mail, return receipt requested, and by private courier to Mr. Marcus Evans at this address, he said, reading my home address from the file. I want a signature, Sarah, he commanded. I want proof he received it. Today. He turned to me as she hurried out. This is the first legal shot, Martha. It is the warning. It officially notifies him of his breach of trust. It demands he immediately return your property, your keys, and provide a full accounting for every dollar he has spent since the day David died. Will he listen? I asked, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. No, Mr. Benning said, his voice flat. He will not. Not yet. He is too arrogant. He has your money, he is in your house, and he has Tiffany in his ear. This letter, he explained, is not for him. It is for the judge. It establishes that we tried to resolve this peacefully, and he refused. It builds our case for the emergency eviction. I stayed with Eleanor, sleeping in her spare room. The waiting was a torment. The next afternoon, the courier service confirmed the delivery. A T. Evans had signed for the legal package. I could picture it. Tiffany, in my silk robe, tearing open the official-looking envelope. I could see her scanning the dense, threatening legal text. Breach of fiduciary duty. Immediate surrender of property. Full accounting. I could hear her laughter. It was a sound I had come to hate. A sound of pure, hollow scorn. My vision was confirmed 2 hours later when Mr. Benning called me at Eleanor's. It is just as we thought, he said, his voice hard. Marcus just got off the phone with the manager at Atlanta Mutual. He was explosive. What did he say? I asked, my stomach nodding. He told the bank that I am a predatory lawyer, that you are old and confused. He said he was the one protecting the estate and that I was just trying to steal your money. The insult stung more than the theft. He is telling people I am senile, I whispered, sinking into Eleanor's armchair. He is trying to paint me as the crazy one. Of course he is, Mr. Benning said, his voice sharp with impatience. It is the classic abuser's tactic. Discredit the victim. It will not work. Did the bank believe him? I asked, dreading the answer. No, Mr. Benning said. They are a bank, Martha. They do not care about family drama. They care about risk. And our trust document is a mountain of risk they will not climb. They have officially paused his loan application, he continued. They have not denied it. They have just frozen it, pending resolution of the estate dispute. So we won? I asked, a flicker of hope returning. We won that battle, he corrected. We stopped the bleeding, but they are still in the house. They still have the $50,000. And now they have officially, formally, ignored our legal demand to leave. He was right. They had been served, and they were staying. They think we are bluffing, Martha, Mr. Benning said, his voice low. They think we have no money to fight them. They think you are a confused old woman with no resources. They are still in my house, I said, the steel returning to my voice. They are probably sleeping in my bed. They think they have won. Yes, Mr. Benning said. They do. They think this is a stalemate. They think they can just wait us out. They are about to get very, very comfortable. But, he said, and I could hear the cold smile in his voice, they just gave us everything we need for the next step. Contempt. Failure to comply. I am filing the emergency eviction petition with the court, first thing in the morning. Mr. Benning was as good as his word. The petition for an emergency eviction was filed with the Fulton County Court. But the law, he warned me, was a slow, grinding wheel. Even an emergency hearing can take days, Martha, he'd said, his voice kind but firm. We have to wait for a judge to review the petition and sign the order. All we can do now is wait. So I waited. I stayed in Eleanor's spare room, a room that was beginning to feel more like a general's tent in a war room. The silence from my old house was deafening. I imagined Tiffany, victorious, arranging my furniture to her liking. I imagined Marcus, either consumed by guilt or, more likely, doubling down on his decision, justifying his theft to himself, convinced I was the enemy. They thought they were safe. The bank had paused the loan, but Mr. Benning's legal letter had just been a warning. They had not seen a court order. They had not seen a sheriff at their door. They still had the $50,000. They still had the new car. They still had my house. They think they have won, I said to Eleanor one evening, staring out her front window at the street. They think I am just a helpless old woman who gave up. Then they are fools, Eleanor said, not looking up from her Bible. And the Lord knows what to do with fools. 2 days later, the silence was broken. Eleanor came back from her mailbox, her mouth a thin, hard line. She was holding a single, thick, cream-colored envelope. Martha, she said, her voice dangerously quiet. You need to see this. She handed it to me. The envelope was expensive, the paper heavy. Eleanor's name was written on the front in a flowing, gaudy script that I knew, with a sinking heart, belonged to Tiffany. I opened it. My hands were perfectly steady. It was an invitation. You are cordially invited to celebrate with Marcus and Tiffany Evans. Please join us for a housewarming to bless our new home and our new beginning. I read the details. It was for this Saturday, at my address. A housewarming, I said, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. They are celebrating. I sank onto Eleanor's sofa, the heavy cardstock feeling like a tombstone in my hand. They had not just stolen my home. They were throwing a party to flaunt it. Who did they send this to? I whispered. Everyone, Eleanor said, her face a mask of cold fury. The entire church board, the Millers from next door, the Hendersons, and Martha. She pointed to a line at the bottom of the invitation. Refreshments and a special blessing by our beloved Pastor James. The full venomous truth of it hit me. This was not just a party. This was a claim. It is a strategy, I said, the cold, hard steel in my chest sharpening to a point. They are doing this to prove to the neighborhood that they own the house. They are doing it to show the bank that the dispute is over. They think, I said, my voice low and shaking with a new kind of focused rage, that if they can get Pastor James to publicly bless their new beginning in my house, that it will make it true, that it will silence me, that I will be too ashamed to fight my own pastor. It was a brilliant, evil move. They were going to use my faith, my community, and my friends as weapons against me. They were going to stand in David's living room and welcome people to their home. Eleanor's face was grim. Martha, we cannot let this happen. What are you going to do? I held the invitation. I thought of Tiffany in my silk robe, smiling and welcoming my friends into my home. I thought of Marcus making a toast to his new life with my stolen money. I stood up and grabbed my purse. I'm going to Mr. Benning's office, right now. What are you going to tell him? Eleanor asked, following me to the door. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. A cold, quiet certainty settled over me, blotting out the last of my fear. I'm going to tell him, I said, that they just gave us the perfect time and place to serve the eviction papers. The next morning, I walked into Mr. Benning's office. This time, I did not need Eleanor to hold my arm. I placed the cream-colored invitation on the polished mahogany of his desk. "They are having a party, Mr. Benning," I said, my voice void of all emotion. "This Saturday. They have invited my pastor to bless the house." Mr. Benning read the invitation. He did not flinch. He just absorbed the information, his face unreadable. "This is," he began, incredibly arrogant. "It is tactical," I corrected him, and I saw a new respect flicker in his eyes. He saw I was no longer just a weeping victim. "They are trying to establish a public claim. They are trying to isolate me from my own church and neighbors, to make me look like the one who is lying." "Yes, Martha," he said, nodding slowly, "you are exactly right." "And," I said, leaning forward slightly, "it is the perfect opportunity. I want to serve the eviction papers at the party." He was silent for a full minute, calculating. "It is public," he warned, his voice low. "It will be messy. There will be no turning back from this. It will destroy your relationship with your son permanently." "He destroyed that when he told me to get out," I said, my voice flat as a steel blade. "He destroyed it when he threw his father's medals in the trash. I am past that, Mr. Benning." A slow, grim smile of pure satisfaction spread across Mr. Benning's face. "Then I agree. It is the perfect opportunity. Their arrogance will be their downfall. In fact, it is the very leverage we need." He sprang into action, grabbing the phone. "Sarah, get me Judge Albright's clerk on the line, now." He picked up the receiver, his entire demeanor charged with a new predatory energy. "Yes, this is Benjamin Benning. I am calling regarding the emergency petition for 1245 Peachtree, case number. He used their party against them. He painted it as an act of public contempt, an attempt to subvert the court's authority while a petition was pending. He argued that they were actively trying to sway public opinion to pressure the bank. It was brilliant. He listened. "Yes, I can be there in 20 minutes." He hung up and grabbed his suit jacket. "The judge will see me right now. He is signing the writ of possession and the injunction." "It is happening, Martha." "What do I do?" I asked, my heart finally starting to pound against my ribs. "You go home to Eleanor's," he said, walking me to the door. "And you pick out your best Sunday suit. You are going to that party." The next 2 days were a blur. I was numb, moving as if in a dream. I felt calm. The fear was gone. The grief was gone. All that was left was a cold, hard sense of purpose. "You are not going in there looking like a victim," Eleanor declared. "You are going in there looking like the owner." She took me shopping. We bought a dark navy blue suit with a skirt. It was sharp, professional, and powerful. It was the kind of suit a woman who owned a bank might wear. I got my hair done, sitting under the dryer at the salon, the invitation in my lap. I read it over and over. Bless our new home and our new beginning. No, I thought, my hands gripping the armrests. My home, your end. Saturday arrived. It was a bright, beautiful, crisp autumn day in Atlanta. The leaves on my oak tree were a brilliant shade of red and gold. It was the perfect day for a party. I stood in Eleanor's living room, dressed in my new suit. I felt like a stranger. I felt like a general in a uniform, preparing for a final battle. The phone rang at exactly 1:30 p.m. The party started at 2 p.m. Eleanor answered it, her face tense. Yes, Mr. Benning. She is right here." She handed me the phone. My hand was rock steady. I felt no tremor, no fear. "Martha!" Mr. Benning's voice was crisp, formal, and energized. "I am outside. The judge signed everything. The writ of possession is in my hand, stamped by the court." I heard a car door slam through the phone. The Fulton County Sheriff's Department is meeting us at the house in 5 minutes. It is time. Eleanor drove me. We parked 3 blocks down, just as Mr. Benning had instructed. I saw his quiet sedan parked 1 street over. He was in position. "Are you ready, Martha?" Eleanor asked, her hand on mine. "I am," I said. I got out of the car. I walked alone. The air was crisp and the sun was bright. As I got closer, I could hear the music. It was loud, thumping, a sound that desecrated the quiet Sunday afternoon David and I had cherished. My front lawn was full of people, my neighbors, my church family, Mistress Henderson, Mr. Miller, people I had known for 30 years. They were holding plates of food, laughing, sipping champagne. Tiffany had hired caterers who were serving drinks from a bar set up on my lawn. Through the open front door, I saw my son. Marcus was standing by my fireplace, the one David had built, holding a champagne flute. He was giving a speech. "My wife Tiffany and I," he was saying, his voice booming over a small speaker system, "are so proud to finally settle in. We are honored to build on the legacy my parents started right here in this house." I saw Pastor James standing nearby, nodding, a proud smile on his face. He lifted his glass to Marcus. The hypocrisy of it, the lie, was so thick I could almost taste it. I did not hesitate. I walked right up the pathway, the one I had laid with David, stone by stone. I stepped onto my own porch. A few people near the front turned and saw me. The laughter died. The conversation sputtered out. A silence rippled across the lawn, moving like a cold wave. The music was still playing, but suddenly it just sounded like noise. Marcus had not seen me, but Tiffany did. She was holding a tray of drinks, wearing a bright red dress. Her eyes scanned the crowd, wondering why it had gone quiet. Her gaze landed on me. Her face, which had been wreathed in a hostess's smile, contorted into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. The tray of glasses crashed to the porch. Champagne and broken glass went everywhere. "What are you doing here?" she shrieked. The music stopped. Now everyone was watching. Marcus turned, confused. "What? Mama? Get her out of here," Tiffany screamed, pointing a long, red-nailed finger at me. "She is not invited. She is trespassing. Someone call the police." I stood my ground. I just looked at her. My hands clasped in front of me, dressed in my navy suit. I did not say a word. My silence, my presence, was the accusation. "Mama, you need to leave," Marcus said, his voice low and panicked. He was embarrassed. His friends, his pastor, were all staring. Do not do this here." "I'm here for my home, Marcus," I said, my voice quiet, but carrying in the sudden, awful silence. I knew she would try to ruin this. Tiffany was becoming hysterical, fumbling for her phone. "I'm calling 911. I'm calling the police. We have a crazy old woman trespassing on our property." She dialed, her voice high-pitched and frantic. "Yes, 1245 Peachtree. My husband's mother, she is senile. She is trying to attack us. Send someone now." Pastor James looked horrified. Mistress Henderson put a hand to her mouth. My neighbors, my friends. They looked at me with pity. They looked confused. This was Tiffany's masterstroke. She was painting me as unstable. A local Atlanta PD patrol car, which must have been just around the corner, pulled up in less than 2 minutes, its blue lights flashing. 2 young officers got out, their hands near their belts. They saw a well-dressed party, a hysterical woman in a red dress, and a calm, older woman in a suit. "Officer, thank God!" Tiffany cried, running onto the lawn. "That is her. She has been harassing us. We told her to leave, and she will not go. This is our house. She is not well." The officer looked at me. His face was neutral, but I saw the calculation. An angry owner versus a quiet, possibly confused old woman. "Ma'am," he said not unkindly, "is this your residence?" "Yes, it is," I said calmly. "No, it is not," Tiffany shrieked. "We own it. My husband and I. We have the papers." "Ma'am," the officer said to me, his voice firming up, "this appears to be a civil dispute. You cannot be here if the residents are asking you to leave. I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the property, back to the sidewalk." "But this is my home," I started, my voice trembling for the first time. "Ma'am, please, do not make us escort you." Marcus just stood on the porch, his face pale, unable to look at me. He was letting it happen. Humiliation, hot and sharp, pricked at my eyes. The two officers were gently but firmly guiding me by the elbow, walking me back down my path, past my neighbors. I looked back. Tiffany stood on the porch, her arms crossed. Her hysterical act was gone, replaced by a cold, victorious, and utterly hateful smirk. She had won. She had beaten me in front of my pastor, my friends, and the law. I was on the public sidewalk, defeated. The officers were getting back in their car. The partygoers were whispering, their eyes full of pity. Tiffany mouthed 2 words at me so the officers couldn't see. "Nice try." And then I heard it. A new sound, a different siren. It was not the quick yelp of the local police. It was the deeper, more authoritative whoop of the Fulton County Sheriff's Department. 2 dark-colored sheriff's cars, their lights flashing, turned the corner. They did not slow down. They pulled right up, blocking the driveway, blocking the police car in. Tiffany's smirk dissolved. Her face went slack with the confusion that quickly turned to panic. The 2 local officers, seeing the sheriff's vehicles, got back out of their car, their expressions wary. The back door of the first sheriff's car opened. Mr. Benjamin Benning stepped out. He was in his dark suit, carrying his leather briefcase. He looked calm, righteous, and absolutely terrifying. 2 uniformed Fulton County Sheriff's deputies, their hands resting on their holstered weapons, got out of the second car. They were not smiling. Mr. Benning walked past me, past the local police officers. "Officer," he said, his voice carrying, "we will handle this. This is a formal civil enforcement." The local officers, recognizing a superior authority, just nodded and stepped back, their mission suddenly over. Mr. Benning walked right up the pathway I had just been forced off of. The 2 deputies flanked him. The crowd of partygoers parted for him like the Red Sea. Tiffany backed up onto the porch, her face pale. Who are you? Get off our property. Marcus!" Marcus was frozen by the fireplace, his champagne glass still in his hand, his face ashen. Mr. Benning did not even look at Tiffany. He walked right past her, onto my porch, and picked up the microphone that Marcus had been using for his self-serving speech. A high-pitched squeal of feedback shot through the yard, making everyone wince. Mr. Benning tapped the mic. "Excuse me, everyone," he said. His deep, authoritative voice boomed across the lawn, silencing the whispers. "My name is Benjamin Benning. I am legal counsel for Mistress Martha Evans, the sole legal owner of this property." A gasp went through the crowd. Pastor James took a step forward, his face etched with profound confusion. "I know there has been some confusion here today," Mr. Benning continued, his voice cold and precise. "So let me be perfectly clear." He pulled a thick, court-stamped document from his briefcase. "This is a writ of possession, signed this morning by Judge Albright of the Fulton County Superior Court." He held the document up for all to see. The red stamp from the judge's office was visible even from the lawn. This document confirms that this property, 1245 Peachtree Lane, is the sole asset of the David and Martha Revival Trust, an irrevocable trust filed in 2011. I stepped forward, moving from the sidewalk to the edge of the lawn. All eyes were on Mr. Benning. Per the terms of this trust, his voice rang out, the sole lifetime beneficiary, the only person legally allowed to inhabit this home, is Mistress Martha Evans. The silence was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop on the grass. Tiffany started to shake her head. No, that is a lie. That is just a piece of paper. Marcus, tell them. Oh, I am not finished, Mr. Benning said, his eyes finding Marcus in the living room. The trust names Marcus Evans as the successor trustee, he announced, a position of sacred duty to protect the beneficiary. Instead, Mr. Benning's voice dropped, becoming a venomous indictment. Mr. Evans breached his fiduciary duty. He illegally locked the beneficiary, his own mother, out of her home. He illegally attempted to secure a $100,000 mortgage on this property, and he illegally transferred $50,000 from the trust accounts to his personal one. He, Mr. Benning said, pointing his finger at my son, is a fraudulent trustee, and she, he said, turning the finger on Tiffany, is a trespasser. Pastor James's face was white with shock. He looked at Marcus with a dawning horror. Mistress Henderson was openly weeping into her hand. This is a misunderstanding, Marcus finally stammered, stumbling onto the porch. We can sort this out. Mama, tell them. The time for sorting out is over, Mr. Evans, Mr. Benning said, his voice flat. He stepped aside. The two sheriff's deputies stepped forward. They were not there to listen to arguments. They were there to enforce a judge's order. One deputy handed the thick packet of papers to Marcus. Mr. Marcus Evans, the deputy said, his voice hard and impersonal. You have been served. This is a legal eviction. Per the judge's order, the second deputy announced, his voice loud enough for the entire party to hear. You and all other occupants have 60 minutes to vacate the premises with your personal belongings. The deputy looked at his watch. After 60 minutes, you will be arrested for criminal trespass. Tiffany let out a sound. It was not a scream. It was a choked, dying gasp. 60 minutes? The party was over. The music was gone. The only sound was the scrape of the caterers' tables being hurriedly folded, the clink of glasses being packed away in haste. My neighbors, my church family, avoided my eyes, but their shame was palpable. They had been so quick to believe the lie, to celebrate my son's theft. Pastor James was the only one who approached me. He stood before me on the lawn, his face a mask of deep, personal shame. Martha, he said, his voice heavy. Sister Evans. I had no idea. I accepted his story. I failed you as your pastor. Can you forgive me? God will forgive you, Pastor, I said. It was all I could offer him. I stood on my porch and watched. The two deputies stood by, impassive, their arms crossed, as Marcus and Tiffany ran frantically, throwing things into their new, expensive car, the car that my money had paid for. They were not packing memories. They were packing electronics, new clothes, designer bags, the trappings of a life they had not earned. Tiffany was weeping, but they were not tears of remorse. They were tears of pure, spoiled anger. Marcus, he never looked at me, not once. He just grabbed a suitcase and threw it in the trunk. He was a stranger. At the 59-minute mark, the deputy looked at his watch. Time to go. Marcus got in the driver's seat. Tiffany got in the passenger seat, her face red and swollen. They backed out of my driveway, the engine of the luxury car silent in the stunned quiet. They drove down the street and turned the corner, out of my life. The deputies tipped their hats to me. "Have a good day, ma'am." Mr. Benning nodded. "I will be in touch Monday, Martha." They left. I stood alone on my porch. The house was mine. I walked inside. The living room was a wreck. Half-eaten plates of fancy food, spilled champagne. A "Welcome to our home" banner hung crookedly over the fireplace. It felt tainted. The house David and I had built, this legacy, it was stained by their greed. I walked into my bedroom. Tiffany had thrown my things out, but she had left the wedding photograph on the nightstand. She had left it to mock me. I picked up the photo of David and me. I looked at his smiling, loving face. "We did it, David," I whispered. "You protected me." I knew in that moment I could not stay. The house was not a home anymore. It was a battlefield. It was a monument to a son I had lost. Mr. Benning and I sued Marcus for the $50,000. With the trust document, it was an open and shut case. The judge ordered him to repay every cent, plus my legal fees. They had to sell the car. I sold the house. I sold it to a nice young family just starting out, the kind of family David and I had been all those years ago. The day the sale closed, I walked out the front door for the last time. I did not look back. That was 6 months ago. I'm writing this from a small balcony, looking out at the ocean. It is the most brilliant, pure blue I have ever seen. The water is calm. I'm on a cruise to Alaska, something David and I had always dreamed of, but never did. With the money from the house, I established the David and Martha Revival Fund. It provides legal aid to elderly people in Atlanta facing financial abuse. Mr. Benning is the executor. My new life is not the one I planned, but it is mine. I am at peace. My legacy is secure, not in bricks and mortar, but in justice. Did my story resonate with you? Which part of this family drama touched your heart the most? And what would you have done in my shoes? I would be honored to read your thoughts and your own experiences in the comments below. If you believe in the power of faith, dignity, and getting justice, please consider sharing the story with someone who may need to hear it. And please subscribe to this channel for more life stories just like this one. Thank you so much for listening. I'm looking forward to reading your comments.